Alexa, who is in my house? By Redditor Stealth Damage. Chapter 3. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Michael is a great provider and an even better partner, but at this point, we can't really afford to stay anywhere else. We bought the house because mortgage actually costs less than our rent did. Even so, I'm beginning to really miss our old house on Ash Street. It was a shithole, but it was our shithole. After my last entry, the day started like any other. I'd nearly forgotten about seeing Michael like that. I even spent the entire day alone in the house working on a new painting, and the time actually flew by. When I told Michael about what was happening and where I found him when he came home that evening, he laughed. It was like he wasn't sure if I was joking or not. You found me like that? I don't remember that at all. That's weird. Sorry if I scared you, baby, he told me. His chuckle didn't undermine the fact that he was genuinely apologizing. I'm not upset. I'm concerned. Do you think we should go to the doctor? I asked, reclining back against the couch beside him, taking a hit from the pipe I was cradling. I passed it to him. He took the pipe and scoffed. No, it's never happened before. If it happens again, I promise I'll make an appointment. He took a hit and spoke through full lungs. You sure you're not just high? He joked. Are you fucking kidding me? How does that not freak you out? Well, if we're lucky, we'll catch your ghostie on camera when they come in this weekend, he shrugged. I'm worried that he's not taking this seriously. It's almost like the man I thought would reinforce me and validate me, even provide me with sound logic, is now finding reasons to avoid talking about this. I'll take anything at this point. Part of me even wishes he would share his skepticism with me like one shares the comfort of warm bread. My best friend who recently moved to the UK told me that he's probably just being aloof because he doesn't want to entertain an uncomfortable series of thoughts. She may be right, but I can't help but feel like it's intentional, and even she is constantly changing the subject. You guys are the only ones I can trust to guide me at this point. Last Friday, I put my coffee cup on the dining table and lumbered into the shower at 8 o'clock as usual, yawning as I let the hot water embrace me. I needed the solace. Michael had already left for work a few minutes earlier. He wakes me up with a kiss goodbye. As I was standing there, I could see a tiny reflection of the bathroom in the glossy shine of the cold lever. The shower is surrounded by clear glass so you can see the rest of the room and be seen. It's actually quite romantic under different circumstances. But I wasn't enjoying my shower anymore. I was watching in case something could potentially be behind me. Or someone. Half of the time, I could barely manage to look. In retrospect, I really wish I could have stayed in that shower forever, because when I walked into the dining room to grab my cup of coffee, I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. Initially, I noticed that a dining chair was missing. Then I realized that it was just above where it should be, standing upright, as if a formal dinner party was taking place on top of the table. My coffee cup hadn't been disturbed as it still sat on its original place beneath them. Jesus fuck, I gasped, backing against the doorway. I was in shock. I didn't hear a single thing while I was in the shower, and I could even see partway into that room from the open door of the bathroom. The dogs didn't even make a ruckus. Everyone knows Walter is notorious for barking at anything, including leaves blowing across the porch, and Tucker will promptly follow suit no matter the reason. But there they were, asleep on their sides in the living room. I hauled ass back into the bathroom to retrieve my phone. It took everything inside of me not to just start throwing those chairs off the table to return everything to where it belonged, but I needed the evidence. That's when I took the picture. I needed you guys to see this. I need someone to know what's happening. This wasn't normal. None of this is normal. I just couldn't understand how this could happen. How could the chairs have moved, and my dogs didn't? It's a classic superstition that animals can detect unrest in a home, but here mine were, completely oblivious, it seemed. My luminol had come in the day before and I was actually just preparing to use it, so I assembled the kit after I fixed the table. The instructions were in Spanish, so it took a while. I mixed it in the kitchen and poured the solution into a spray bottle. You can see a photo of what I was using here. Luminol is an easily acquired product that forensics investigators use to see trace evidence of iron and hemoglobin. The object will glow blue if blood came into contact with it. I looked it up to make it at home, but it seemed pretty difficult, so I just ordered it. I headed for the hallway, spritzing a fine mist over the entire thing. I gave it a minute, but I had to watch intently. Luminol only works for about 30 seconds, according to the packaging. When I saw the glow starting to emerge, I made sure that I got the best exposure possible and used the slow shutter function on my phone. After about 10 Mississippi, the blue blotches became clear. You can see what I saw right here. The image may be darker on some screens than others. Michael could hardly see it on his phone. I showed him right away when he got home, but he argues that it could be anything. Me, on the other hand? Yeah, not so sure. I couldn't believe it. I had been right this whole time. I dropped to the floor on my knees, just staring between my phone and the floor. Now, to be fair, I want to tell all of you a bit about this. Though luminol is most often used to detect blood at a crime scene, it's worth noting that it can pick up other bodily fluids along with fecal matter and a small amount of blood found in urine. This is because it can pick up a small number of chemicals in excretion. However, forensic investigators find this mixture useful because not only does it detect blood, but it can detect if someone tried to clean up. Even clothes that have been washed up to 10 times can still react to traces of blood highlighted with the luminol. This was a very highly concentrated area. It was time to start setting some traps. The cameras still hadn't arrived the next day, and the USPS tracking service said delivery was delayed until the next business day. I would have to wait until Monday. It was Friday, and because my car was being repaired for a leak, my dad had to give me a ride to the shop that day. My work schedule is erratic, while Michael's is about the same as everyone else's, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. I left the house at around 11 a.m. for a short day, but before I left, I closed all of the doors in the hallway and double-checked them. Once again, I kissed my dogs goodbye and they took their usual spot on the couch. When I got home at about 2 o'clock, I glanced up from the mudroom while taking off my shoes. I could see light pouring in from the left side of the hallway. The guest room door was open. I pounded barefoot down the hallway and yanked the door shut without looking inside. I fished my dead phone out of my pocket and plugged it in at the PS4 in the living room. Come on, I muttered, waiting for the battery icon to appear. A few seconds later, it blipped up to 1%. I held down the power button and the orange Verizon screen faded in. When my cover screen appeared, I rocketed into my messages. Here are the messages between Michael and I. Screenshots are at the bottom. So I did an experiment this morning. I went through the house and cleared and closed every door to the point where I heard it latch. I came home and checked the doors, and the door to the guest room was halfway open. Weird. It's creepy. So what you're saying is you want a locking door handle. LOL, maybe. Damn. One that locks from the outside. That's really not a bad idea. I can't help but find humor in all of this. This can't be happening, can it? Am I becoming hysterical? I have to keep things light with Michael. Lately, we've been bickering about the doors. Every time I bring any of this up, he's quick to find a ridiculous explanation. The dogs got back there and pushed the door open somehow. The hinge isn't tight enough. I'm forgetting to close the doors myself and I just don't realize it. But I need him as a witness, too. He's acting like I'm just calling it as it happens, when truthfully, it's in the back of my mind all the time now, lurking, prodding, scratching. It was hardly a day before I found myself in the throes of darkness again. I snapped awake in the middle of the night. I had to pee, so I crossed the hallway and into the first bathroom, the one with just a tub and no shower. I like it better these days because it's closer to the safety of my bed. While I was sitting there, squinting in the light, I could hear the distinct sound of periodic creaking across the boards, as if someone was tiptoeing up the hallway towards me. I tensed up, ceasing midstream to listen. It stopped. I waited to make sure nothing else caught my attention before finishing my business. As I reached for the toilet paper, the light went out. Again, the room seemed to expand. The reassuring glow from the living room night light wasn't visible like it always was. Where the door would be was nothing but more void. I swallowed my breath and held it deep in my gut when I felt the moisture in the air, wondering if it was going to happen again. I couldn't stand up. All I could do was weep into my knees, begging for it to stop. I heard the slapping again, but this time, it was right at my feet. I was at the room's mercy. I could hear Alexa's distant voice from the direction of the bedroom. That's not very nice to say. I tried to shut my eyes again, hoping my grandmother's trick could save me this time. But this wasn't a dream, and in my heart, I knew it probably wouldn't do much good. I did it regardless. It's not like I could see anything in the room anyway. I squinted my eyes so tightly this time that it made my cheeks ache. I rose my hands up and pressed my lids as hard as I could with my fingertips. My face was still between my knees, so when I opened my eyes, I could see a reddish glow from my lap. I lifted up my head. The light was on again, and at my feet on the floor was James, my stuffed fox from my childhood, staring up at me with his floppy head tilted slightly to the right. I snatched James off the floor, darting into the bedroom. I clambered onto the foot of the bed to thrust myself into the covers and into the comfort of Michael's arms, but when I got there, I noticed he was sitting up, staring at the closet. A moment later, he lay down as if he had never risen. I stayed as far away from him as possible, curled up on the other side of the mattress until the sun bled through the window. In the morning, I pulled bedroom Alexa's plug. "Kick, you're just making shit up at this point," Michael snapped at me in the grocery store parking lot Sunday afternoon as I hurried after him. My short legs could barely keep up. "I'm not." He was right there at my feet. I swear I didn't take him into the bathroom with me. Why would I ever do that? I was trying to tell him about my theory that our roommate was trying to accomplish something, perhaps even turn him against me. Michael halted and pivoted to look at me, pointing his finger in my face. He was turning red in his ears, his dark skin and black hair seeming to be lacking the glow I'd known and loved about him. Actually, his tone scared me a little. He'd never been in my face like that before. People had begun to stare. Someone had to put James there, and it isn't cute anymore. Are you just looking for attention? Am I not enough for you anymore? His voice was low, but cutting. He was trying not to make a scene. What? I'm not lying to you, damn it. Please believe me, I begged quietly. I felt the sting of salty tears on the rims of my eyes. I was just so tired. Well, whoever did it probably did it because they're sick of your shit, too. And with that, he stormed into the store, and we didn't share a word for the rest of the trip. When we got home, I put away the groceries on my own while Michael went out to brood in his shed. I didn't see him for the rest of the evening until dinner time. I swear the days are getting shorter even though spring is on its way. I barely remembered he was out there until I saw the sky turning orange. I dragged myself across the yard, past the hothouse, into the shed's door. I rapped on the wooden frame. "Michael, it's dinner time." I got no response, so I pushed one of the double doors slightly ajar. "Michael, can we talk?" He was huddled over his workbench, working on who knows what. He grunted. "About what?" "You were really upset with me earlier." He turned to face me now. "I'm just so tired lately, babe. I'm tired of us fighting over this stupid house. I'm tired of you nagging me and calling me worthless." He was different now and he looked like the man I loved, but I was distracted by what he'd just said. I'd never told him he was worthless. Ever. What? I never said that. I love you. You're everything I live for. Don't you see that? See, he bellowed, throwing a piece of wood onto the concrete floor in frustration. The clatter was loud and made me jump. You love me one minute, and hate me the next. What is it you want? Like, what is your fucking problem exactly? Tears threatened to climb their way back up again, so I turned and closed the door. I finished dinner myself. A few hours later, I crawled into bed alone. It wasn't long before I sensed Michael in the doorway. I couldn't bring myself to look at him yet. I didn't understand what was happening with us. If I catch you playing tricks again, I will end you. Michael's voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard come from him before. It was twisted, deep, and riddled with malice. It almost sounded like a stranger. I yanked a hand up to cover my mouth, stifling a sob. The floorboards creaked and I heard him turn back into the hallway and go into the living room. Alexa's blue light glimmered across the wall, but I didn't care. I hardly know my husband anymore. The tears that had been teasing me all day had now won as I wept until the oblivion of sleep took me over. By the time Monday morning had come, I was furious. Michael had never threatened me like that before. He had already left for work when I woke up this time, without my kiss. I could have never imagined this. It was like he was sick of looking at me. I know that it's possible that whatever is in this house is trying to turn him against me, but I'm dismayed to realize that it's proving to be successful. Well, I had promised myself in the past that I would never suffer another abusive relationship, and Michael was getting dangerously close to being alone in this damn house. I wonder if it's not our roommate at all, and that's what he's wanted all along. When I checked bedroom Alexa yesterday, she was plugged back in. Everyone, I'm really wondering if this isn't all just a trick. Could Michael be trying to get rid of me? Was it actually him that planted James? He's been acting so strange and his behavior has done nothing but escalate. He's also the one that has the Alexa app on his phone, as mine won't do much since the left side of my screen doesn't work and I still have a few months on my mobile contract. I'm just so lost and I don't know who to trust anymore, especially if I can't even trust Michael. We have barely spoken at all, and when I turned my back on him to go into the kitchen last night, I heard him mutter under his breath from across the room. "Dumb bitch." That hurt more than anything this house could throw at me. I don't know what's taking the post so long, but these cameras were supposed to be delivered yesterday. I'll have to call customer service. I want to leave, but where would I go, honestly? Michael controls all of the funds. Whoa, I'd better get ready for dinner. I didn't notice how much time has passed since I started this. Chapter 4. The cameras finally came in. Unfortunately, someone keeps unplugging the DVR recorder so it's only a live feed. When I say someone, I totally mean Michael. I have to admit, he's pretty good at playing along. Either he's fucking with me, or I'm straight up going bats. I hear talk that a lot of echoes have been hacked lately. He's not just unplugging the DVR, but he's also plugging the echo back in. I'd throw the damn things out if it wouldn't put me in a worse situation. He already thinks I'm overreacting and wasting $70 isn't going to help. Anyway, he's the one with the security experience, and at least I can see the live feed on my phone. I thought things were going well, but I was wrong. 3 nights after I last posted, Michael came into the bedroom after he got home from work. We had both been keeping ourselves busy so we didn't have to stay in the house, if not for fear of each other, then for fear of our roommate. I heard him come into the room with a sheepish look on his face. It was sweet and cautious, and I loved him for it. All I wanted to do at that moment was hold him. I wanted to kiss his face and smell his hair. I wanted to go back in time. Kick. Have you eaten today? No, I said, lowering the makeup brush from my face. I turned to look at him fully. You okay? No, he said, his voice breaking a bit. Can I take you to dinner? Michael always used to take me to dinner, but we haven't gone in weeks. We like to communicate over food. It's part of our culture, and it's considered a very social family activity that everyone in our community seems to have in common. We don't usually indulge, but he used to like to take me to the nicer restaurants around town when he was courting me to show me off. I nearly cried when he asked. I would never turn down a meal with you, I said. He took me to the cooperage down the street, and we had a lovely time. It was as if things were as they were only a few months ago, just after the wedding, when we were so proud to belong to each other. We held hands on the way back to the car. He had placed his hand on my knee while he drove home. This illusion of peace was short-lived. I woke up the next morning, hearing Michael cursing violently from the kitchen. I threw the covers off and rushed down the hallway. I've been making Michael's coffee every weekday morning just before his alarm goes off for the last 5 years, But it was Saturday, which means he was awake before I was. Michael, what's dash? Kick, god damn it. I told you to knock this shit off. He pounded his fist into the face of the refrigerator, causing me to wince. He's never struck me before, but lately, I've been of the mind that there's a first for everything. I flicked on the light to override the weak one pouring in from the living room lamp. The white tile shone with the reflection of water. The refrigerator had been pulled forward, presumably by Michael, to expose a loose tube. It gushed water all over the floor beneath it. My eyes followed the path of veins across the floor. Eventually, the streams broke apart in the center of the kitchen. Wet footprints led into the hallway, darkening the wooden floor. They stopped short at the patched vent. Look, it's just a leak. Can't we fix it? A leak? Babe, this line was cut with something and no, you know what? I can't fucking do this. You're out of control, kick. Wait a second, stop. I followed him up the hallway. I don't know what's going on, but you need to talk to me. He spun around and grabbed me by the wrist. All you do is talk. You can't even make up your fucking mind. You're telling me you love me 1 minute and then you're screaming at me the next. I can't take this anymore. I'm fucking done. His hand around my wrist tightened, sending a buzz of pain over my forearm that warned that some nerves were trapped between my bones in his grip. He tossed my arm aside when he was finished barking in my face and slammed the door to the bedroom. A few minutes later, the bedroom door opened. I heard something heavy bump to the floor, and then I heard the pair of wheels rolling over the wood. Michael had packed a bag. He was leaving. I dissolved into a puddle of tears on the sectional, unable to speak as I watched him carry it through the mudroom and shut the door. Like when it snows, the house was silent again. Michael finally texted me yesterday evening, telling me he was going to stay at his brother's one city over in Santa Fe about an hour from where we live. By this time, I've stopped watching the cameras. There's nothing to see anyway. This ghost is the least of my worries. All I want is my life back. I miss the family we made. I miss my partner. But I'm also angry. I want to believe this is some unseen force, but he's never around when things actually take place. As the days go by, I just feel like this is all according to his plan. I'm so stressed that I've been losing time. 1 hour can feel like seconds. I was planning to gather the funds like you suggested, but Michael left before I could. I want to go back 5 years. I want to go back to being 22 years old, seeing his daring brown eyes and feeling like making trouble. I want to go back to the way things were. I want to go back to the house on Ash Street. I took your advice and texted my friend who looked up my address for me, Dustin. He came over this afternoon, pacing the floor in my living room. I'm sorry this is happening, he said, once he read through all of these posts. He handed my phone back to me. Me, too, I said. Actually, it was more like a blubber. I was curled up on the couch, hand pressed to my face. I shut my eyes. Wake up. We should really get you out of here. Why don't you go and get your things together? I'm going to call Leah and let her know you'll be taking the futon. Leah is his roommate. He left the living room and stepped outside for a smoke while he made his phone call. I just stared into the blank TV, thinking of all the nights we spent binging new Marvel specials on Netflix and playing co-op on Call of Duty while the sun laid a bright streak across the screen. It made me think of gaming side by side and teaching him how to count specs in MMOs while he taught me how to snake the best flash grenades in FPSs. It reminded me of the time he came to my rescue and somehow took out 20 guys with just an axe and a flashlight, finishing off our enemies right before the controller died. I said, "That's enough." I could hear the pounding all around me, sudden and threatening like an unexpected thunderstorm. I opened my eyes to the dark and immediately began to panic. I haven't slept in the dark in over 3 days. The lights in my house are always on. I don't take chances anymore. Why was I suddenly in the dark, and where was Dustin? I realized I wasn't sitting on the couch anymore. I pressed my hands to the space around me. It was solid and cool to the touch. It was the floor. I was sitting on the floor. I felt something brush against my head, and recoiled. I pressed against the wall. I could see movement above me, but no clear image. It smelled musty and humid. I sucked air through my nose and slowly reached out my hand. I could touch the door in front of me, and see the light bleeding in from beneath it. Dustin! I can't see. Open the door. This isn't funny. I propped myself onto the balls of my feet and slid my hand upwards, searching for the doorknob. I flinched when my fingertips touched it. The cold metal was unexpected. The shock immediately sent my body into motion as I thrusted myself into the door and twisted the knob. The door popped open and I fell onto the floor of my bedroom, sobbing. I had been inside the closet. Kick, what the fuck? What the fuck? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a part of your stupid fucking story. He stepped over me and headed for the hallway. I could hear his curse echoing off the walls as he went. You need help. Mike was right to leave. Are you fucking kidding me? Who in their right fucking mind locks themselves in a dark closet for a half hour just to scare someone? The front door slammed, and my dog started barking. It's 3:17 p.m. Chapter 5. Michael hadn't been home in over 72 hours. I called my mom and asked her to stay with me just after I last posted. She came as soon as possible, sometime late Tuesday afternoon. I can't stay with her, she has a new husband. And teenage kids. I figured I'd settle with this until I could get something else lined up. Nothing really happened. The dogs were thrilled to see Grandma, and it was as if some semblance of normalcy had begun to ooze its way over the house from the bottom up. Maybe it's because my mother was with me cuddled up with tea in her pink silk robe. I can't be sure, but it's hard not to feel safe around your mom if you have a good one. Still, I couldn't bring myself to be honest with her about everything that's been going on. Certainly not after the way Dustin reacted. We had just finished watching the latest episode of CSI when we realized it was after midnight in the blink of an eye. Maman decided to go to bed, but I didn't really want to let her. I was reluctant to be alone, but at least she would be staying in bed with me as the guest room doesn't have a complete bed set yet. I let her go. I was going to have to get through the night regardless. How anyone could sleep in this house is now beyond me. I decided to head into the shower for a quick rinse before going out to the hot tub. I was going to video call my friend in the UK since it was daytime where she was. By this time, it was 7:30 a.m. for her, and she wouldn't have classes for a while. She was expecting calls from me regularly by now. I figured this would help me relax. I checked in on Mom before I went out. She was sound asleep in my bed. Alexa had been unplugged and stuffed into a drawer since the day before, and I could see that she remained that way without Michael coming and going. I never had an experience in the hothouse and had fond memories of Michael there. We had even spent the evening celebrating with champagne and blackberries the very night we moved in. We had kissed, and he had toasted. Here's to the rest of our lives, he said. I slipped my shorts and t-shirt off and stepped over the redwood and towards the hot tub. I pressed the jet button twice for moderate pressure and pulled the light switch slider down halfway. I was nude, and really didn't appreciate my neighbors knowing too much about me. I clicked on my phone and slid my finger across the screen, searching for my friend's screen name. She wasn't online yet. She would probably call me any minute. If not, I would call someone else. I pressed the button to turn off my screen so I could get in. That's when I saw him. Michael's face stared blankly from behind me, his reflection blurry in the black screen in my hands. I couldn't see most of his face, but I could see one of his eyes, and I noticed that there was no real shine in them, creating an echo of void. He rushed me forward with his body and slammed my hips against the side of the hot tub. A sharp pain radiated through my pubic bone and up the right side of my ribs. My phone clattered into the water as he locked my arms behind my back. I tossed and thrashed around, knocking off my glasses, but I couldn't seem to pull myself free from his grip around my wrists. His palm pushed me beneath the water, his fingers tangled in my long hair. I could feel the hot tub jets pumping steam bubbles in my face, the stream causing me to gag as it forced air into my already drowning lungs. My red hair bled through the water like an omen. I can't believe my husband is trying to kill me. I could hear his voice over the humming of the tub under the water, laughing and calling my name. But it isn't really my name. Kitty! Kitty! I told you I would end you. He was shouting in that same voice I heard him use that night in the bedroom. It sounded unreal now that it carried through the vacuum of the water. It was almost electronic in nature. I was able to hear my dog Tucker barking in the yard. God, she sounded so far away. I squinted my eyes shut. Yet again, it was my last resort. I just wanted to wake up. My flesh was burning and my eyes rolled back beneath their lids. I felt dizzy, whether from the 97-degree water or from lack of oxygen. When I came to, I was on the redwood planks, staring up at the hothouse ceiling. I could still hear the jets pumping away. My skull vibrated with the buzzing of the motor. My muscles ached with the cold, and my hair was plastered to my face. When my vision came into focus, I threw myself onto my feet, but I kept low. I stared out the screen door of the hothouse and towards the office window. The light turned on. Michael was still inside the house. I couldn't let him get to Maman, but I couldn't call for help without a phone either. The walls on either side of the property are too high. I would have to go through the house. I crept up to the side of the kitchen window and slowly picked up the garden spade sticking out from a bag of fertilizer. I crossed the back porch and silently let myself in. Tucker and Walter rushed over to me, their tails wagging. Walter sniffed my arm as I shuffled through the kitchen, still soaking wet. I guided him aside and stopped to listen. Over the sound of their claws tapping on the tile, I could hear movement in the back of the house. I pushed them both out the doggy door so they wouldn't give away my position. I had two options, either go for the front door to my left and save myself, or save my mother to the right. After a moment, I could hear something else. It sounded like retching, long and dry. A shuddering breath. It was Michael, and he was vomiting for some reason. Was he drunk? I could hear him spit into the toilet bowl. I snuck along the edge of the hallway, my back pressed against the wall leading to the office. When I got to the end, I noticed a trail of pale vomit leading into the first bathroom with the tub. I could see into the bedroom from where I was. I could see James on my pillow, his head tilted slightly. The light was now on, and my silver bedspread was tainted with a copper puddle. My entire world shifted violently to the right. I had lost my footing in time, and all I could do was stare. In bed was my mother, her arm hanging from the corner of the bed, twisted in her robe. Her sock dangled from the edge, pink and fluffy with what looked like kittens on it. The white pom-poms on the side were splattered and florid. Purple bruises trailed up and embraced her neck. She had also been strangled, her eyes bulging and her gaze directed towards the closet. Sudden silence awoke me and my adrenaline kicked in again. For a moment, I had been as breathless as she was. I heard Michael stand up from his place on the floor and stagger towards the door jamb. I saw his fingers curl around it and run up the side of the hallway wall just above my head. I tightened my hold on the lime green grips of my spade. Again, time seemed to screech to a halt. I couldn't help but think about all that had brought us here in that short time before we tumbled to the floor in a pile of arms and legs. Here was my husband, the love of my life, and he had just taken the life of someone who gave me mine. This was his goal all along. He had always meant to take me down, no matter if it was by suicide or murder. I couldn't have that. We just couldn't have that. It must have been that damn life insurance. Even though Michael is twice as big as I am, I had managed to end up on top. I was the one who was armed. He was shouting as he struggled, and the dogs barked in alarm from behind the baby gate. I cracked him over the skull with the metal spade. Stop, kick, damn it, he sobbed. You killed her. You fucking killed her. Oh, Jesus, you psycho. His voice broke like a teenager. He wasn't so scary now, writhing on the floor as he reached for my neck. He just looked sort of pathetic, but I knew that now, as always, he was trying to trick me into submission. He had just tried to kill me, and then he had killed my mother. This had to stop. Over our banging struggles echoing down the hall, I could hear a small monotonous voice coming from the bedroom next to us. That's not very nice to say. His hands flew wildly over my arms, chest, and face. I hit him again. I felt the harsh burn of his fingernails raking over my skin as he fought to kill me before I killed him. He began to gasp like a fish when I pressed my knee over his throat to subdue him. No, I said, heaving to regain lost breath as I leaned over him, my spade poised. His eyes flashed, and again, I saw that void. It's not. I plunged my spade into his skull using both hands. It lodged itself between his jaws, slicing through the flesh in his cheeks. The gashes cut through his gaping face like sewing scissors through silk. His chest rose forcibly and his legs began to kick. The lacerations reached all the way to his molars like a splitting seam. His blood bubbled over the sides of his face and pooled onto the floor. It gathered beneath him, right over the patched vent. He glugged and gagged on his severed tongue for a moment, his hands giving one last violent squeeze to my upper arms. They slid down my shoulders and rested at my elbows. Cloudy red marks spread across my flesh as a ghost of Michael's fingertips. His body went slack beneath me, his eyes still wide and glassy. It was over. It's 3:18 a.m. I headed back to the hothouse to get my glasses, where Michael had knocked them off. As I passed through the hallway, I could hear that wet slapping beneath my feet, the same I'd been hearing all along. We could hear the buzzing, and the dogs were nowhere to be found. The loud static of the air around me reverberated around my ears. I had totally forgotten I was still nude. I was in a haze from what had happened, and I could virtually see myself, wearing Michael's blood like war paint, as I crossed the backyard. My skin stung with sweat and I could feel the rake marks from his nails all over my chest and face. It felt like I hadn't even really been there at all. We had been so far away. When I reached for the door handle to the hothouse, the buzzing stopped. I could see my breath in front of me, and in front of it, a red handprint over the handle. Michael had killed my mother first, and I had killed him. I must have stood there for a long time, because when I finally went for the handle, my feet had gone completely numb on the cobblestone and my flesh was pricked with goosebumps. The hothouse was still warm and the hot tub had come to a quiet purr as the jets had turned off for power saving. We went over to my clothes and started to dress. I found my glasses near the other end of the hot tub. I stood upright and peered into the water at my reflection doubled in the tiny waves of unrest. My phone still lay at the bottom. It was useless to call for help now. Besides, what was I going to do? I couldn't live anymore, not after we had to destroy the only thing I loved to save ourselves. What sort of life would I have, after all this? What could possibly bring me back? All I can do is stand up, walk out of this office with Michael's pistol, and face what we've done. At least our dogs will be fed until they find us. I want to apologize to you all. I know nothing can bring them back. I can only imagine what will be said. The only thing that is real for me anymore is the wooden floor beneath me and the open door behind me. I can't help but be reminded of living as a child in that strange home on Claremont Place. Like I said before, when you live in a house like that, it never really leaves you. Maybe it never left me. I'm just hoping whatever is inside of me will let me pull the trigger. Please forgive me. God, I'm just hoping you can forgive me. I'm hoping you all will be witnesses. I slid down the side of the hot tub, pulling my knees up. I felt a lump in the pocket of my shorts. I reached down, and my fingers met plush fabric. The spattered pink kittens stared at me in the dark. There will be no more updates.